All right, we got an update for you coming out of Hollywood. So we'd previously announced, based on his announcement, that Bill Maher was bringing real time back in spite of the fact that the writer's strike and the actor's strike, but with this one, the writer's strike is what's pertinent, is still ongoing. He said, I won't do the monologue, I won't do the other scripted segments, but we are going to bring it back at this point. Well, after a lot of what I can only presume is a lot of public pressure and probably a lot of guests who didn't really want to join him for the panel, he has backtracked, put this up on the screen. Here is his announcement. He says, my decision to return to work was made when it seemed nothing was happening and there was no end in sight to the strike. Now that both sides have agreed to go back to the negotiating table, I'm going to delay the return of real time for now and hope that they can finally get this done. Saagar, what do you think about this about face?
Oh, I'm asking you, what is he talking about? What do you mean they've agreed? What has actually changed in the last week? I think the only thing that's changed is Backlash and Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, and look, you and I track this stuff pretty closely. I haven't seen any major shift in the negotiating posture. I mean, there have been continuing talks throughout this entire thing. It's not like there's been nothing. There hasn't been substantive movement. So there's a lot of speculation. I'm curious what you think. If I had to guess, I think it's because he couldn't book very many guests.
Yeah.
Or because he received some sort of ultimatum from the people who do work for him. He said he loved his writers previously. We'll play the clip in a little bit. And they were like, hey, if you do this, I'm never going to come work for you again.
The justification he gives here, I don't think has anything to do with it. I think it's I honestly think it's very Weasley. Like, it just happens that there was some untold breakthrough that now has completely changed my mind. I think closer to his actual feelings about this whole situation were revealed when he was talking on his podcast to Jim Gaffigan. Let's recall what he said before all of this unfolded.
I feel for my writers. I love my writers. I'm one of my writers. But there's a big other side to it, and a lot of people are being hurt besides them. A lot of people who don't make as much money as them in this bipartisan world we have, where you're just in one camp or the other. There's no in between. You're either for the strike, like they're fucking Che Guevara out there. You know, like this is Cesar Chavez lettuce picking strike, or you're with Trump. You know, like there's no different. There's only two camps, and it's much more complicated than that. What I find objectionable about the philosophy of the strike, it seems to be they have really morphed a long way from 2007 strike, where they kind of believe that you're owed a living as a writer, and you're not. This is show business. This is a make or miss league.
They kind of believe you're owed a living as a writer, and you're not. And so his original justification for why he was going back to the show was all framed very altruistically, like, oh, I'm looking out for the other members of the show staff, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this is truer to his real thoughts on the
It's absolutely true to his thoughts. And we talked about this previously, about what he means. I mean, look, yes, if you're an aspiring writer, sure, you're not, owed a living. But if you're a professional writer in the game who's attached to a show that is making money, well, yeah, I think that you are owed a living as a writer. And I think that's what the entire strike is about. It's also about preserving said ability to continue to make a living in the future to make sure that that doesn't go away. But I don't really know, at this point, how it's going to end. I mean, look, I think it's a good thing that he didn't do it, especially, as I said at the time, his entire justification, he's like, the essence of the show is discussion. I'm like, well, dude, you're still doing your podcast. Like, you got Tarantino on, you got Jim Gaffigan on. It's like, you can still do everything that you want to do. As I understand it, HBO even pays him to do Club Random. So, like, I don't think he's losing any money, from doing, or at least he's not going completely broke as a result of this. Maybe hire him on your Club Random podcast. There's a lot of cameras in there for some reason. My point is just that you can continue to make things work and have your voice out there. At the time, I speculated, I was like, maybe he really wants his voice heard in the middle of the election season, which I guess I could understand. But again, when you have the ability to continue to go on podcasts and do all this tour, he could probably do stand-up and so many of these other things. I just don't see why, there's no point to coming back to the show other than just directly, disregarding some of those claims. Another reason why is he's actually a member of the Writers Guild.
Yes.
So it's one of those where it's like, unlike Drew Barrymore, he literally is a member of the WGA.
Right.
So for him to go back is a totally in violation of his own membership of the union.
It certainly would seem that way.
Yeah.
It certainly would seem that way. Yeah, if I had to guess what happened here, I do think that there was probably elite level pushback that got through to him, where they probably started the process of reaching out to guests and seeing who they were going to get on the panel. And I'm sure there were plenty of, Republicans who don't support unions who were willing to come on, but they try to balance out the panel and have a diverse diversity of viewpoints every single show. And I guarantee you, probably every Democrat or liberal that they were reaching out to was like, no, I'm not going to be the one who goes out there and takes this heat from crossing a picket line. So I don't doubt that that's the case. I'm sure he has other friends that are in the WGA that were probably like, dude, what the hell? I don't know what his own staff was saying to him or how they felt about it. So that could have been a factor as well. But then I also think watching what happened with Drew Barrymore and then the level of pushback he himself was getting directly from the public when, again, you know, we looked at the numbers yesterday. I think it's 72% of the public supports the writers and only 19% are on the side of the studio execs. And you basically, by bringing your show back, you are taking the side of the studio execs. Like however you want to frame it in your head, that's the reality of what you're doing. And so I also think, you know, this is an instance where like online public bullying, shame, pressure, et cetera, worked out in the correct direction.
I've never done the show you have. Who are the audience members? Are they from LA? Are they not? Like, who are they exactly?
I don't know.
Okay, because that's another thing that I was thinking, because the Drew Barrymore show, she was searching people's bags for WGA.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe they weren't even able to get audience, or they were afraid that they were going to get audience pushback.
That could be. I mean, I do think, my assumption is that the audience is just, drawn from people locally who, you know, probably wait in some line to get a ticket or whatever. Right. But I don't really know the details of how that all works out. But yeah, that could have been an issue as well. I think probably just the public heat and public pressure was too overwhelming. And we saw some other shows, like I think that showed The Talk. They had originally announced they're coming back, and I think they also caved and backed down because none of these people wanted to, you know, end up like Drew Barrymore weeping and panicking and whatever was going on with her. So I think that's probably the bottom line.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.